Hi everyone. Today, me and my friends are going to deal with the language variation in sociolinguistics. First, we have to know what is sociolinguistics. Sociolinguistics is the study of language in relation with society and social factors, the age, gender, social class, etc. Before dealing with the language variation, we have to distinguish between these three variables: a variable, a variant, and a variety. A variable, which is an abstract representation of the source of variation, realized by two or more variants. A variant is the actual realization of a variable, and a variety, which is a neutral term used to refer to languages and dialects and to its prestige level. Example, the Egyptian Arabic, the Syrian Arabic, which are dialects. The language variation is one of the most important phenomena of sociolinguistics. It is the social, regional, or contextual differences in the ways that a particular language is used. It can also be defined as the study of how languages change time to time, place to place, class to class, and society to society. It also means dialect or vernacular. It is a variety of a language spoken in one part of a country. Language variation is concerned with the study of how language varies among different groups of speakers and the relationship of this variation to social factors. Means that it can differ from one country to another, or from one region to another, or from one society to another. It is also a variety of language that is used by government, in the media, in schools, and for international communication. Language also differs depending on many dimensions, some of which are as follows: geographical, social, and function. It also varies with distance, as it is well tested before. The language variation is a central topic in sociolinguistics. No one speaks the same way all the time, and people fit variation with the languages they speak for many purposes. Means that every person changes its manner of speaking depending on some factors. So, to sum up, language differs from an individual to another, a society to another, a generation.
Types, context, and usages of language variation. There are a handful of ways in which linguists categorize varieties of language. Below we will look at the following variety terms. We have the vernacular language, standard language, lingua franca, pidgin language, Creole language, dialect, dialect continuum and mutual intelligibility, diglossia, jargon, slang, patois, colloquial, informal, and official language. First type, we have the vernacular language. This type refers to the native language of a country. It's used to describe the local languages. It is a native language or dialect that is used by specific people or specific region. Also, it is used in usual and ordinary situations. It's considered mainly as the mother tongue of these people. For example, we have three examples. First of all, they have gone up the road a piece. You want I should to do it for you? Second one, Chiag is a vernacular language of Francophones living in Southeast region. And the third example, like children are talking with their friends, use the formal language from these places. That is the vernacular language that they use. Then we have the second type, which is the standard language. Standard language is a particular variety of language that's regarded as the most correct, widely accepted form of the language. It is used by a population for public and formal purposes. For example, in British we say I have got. In American we say I have gotten. Example number 2, standard Scottish versus standard English. In Scottish we say it needs washed. In English it needs washing. Then we have the third type, which is the lingua franca. Lingua franca is any language that's widely used beyond the population of its native speakers. The language that is adopted as a common language between speakers, whereas in which native languages are different. Pidgin language is a restricted, limited language which arises for the purpose of communication between two social groups, in which one group is more dominant than the other, and the less dominant group is the one who is going to develop in Pidgin. For example, Hawaiian Pidgin English, created by immigrant workers from Philippines, Korea, and Japan, who worked for English speakers. The fifth type is Creole language. Creole language is a language that develops from Pidgin, which becomes the native first language of the new generation. When a Creole remains in contact with prestige or high language, from which it was largely constructed, it may undergo significant decreolization. It is the adjustment toward the prestige standard. For example, we have Papiamento, local language with Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, English, and American Indian languages. Example 2, Tok Pisin, primary English influences, and the German, Malaya, Portuguese, and Austronesian languages. Then we have the sixth type, which is dialect. In dialect we have regional dialect, social dialect, and idiolect dialect. First of all, dialect, it is a variety of language that differs from the other dialect in 3 levels: phonological, vocabulary, grammar. There is also 3 kinds of dialects. We have the first one, which is regional dialect. It refers to the language varieties that differs according to the geographical areas of the speakers. For example, we have many examples. First of all, in British English we say pavement, but in American English we say sidewalk. Second, in British English we say boot, but in American English we say trunk. Example number 3, in British English we say bonnet, but in American English we say hood. Example number 4, in British English we say petrol, but in American English we say gas. And the fifth example, in British English we say baggage, but in American English we say luggage. Then we have the social dialects, which are concerned with social groups, in the sense that people have the different social backgrounds, like level of education, social class, age, gender, occupation, and so on. For example, Christian, Muslim, and Jewish in Baghdad talk different variety of Arabic. And the third one is the idiolect dialect, is a personal dialect that is created by a person himself according to personal experiences.
And we have dialect continuum and mutual intelligibility. Dialect continuum. It is a range of dialects which are spoken across some geographical area that differ slightly between neighboring areas,
But as one travels in any direction, these differences accumulate such that the speakers from opposite ends of the continuum are no longer mutually intelligible. We move to mutual intelligibility. Is the situation in which two or more speakers of a language, closely related language, can understand each other. The language should be similar enough in pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar to allow the mutual intelligibility. Here we have an example about mutual intelligibility. Swedish and Norwegian are almost the same language. Danish is very close to both of them and can be understood easily with a little exposure, example listening to the radio. We move to language in society. Monolingualism is the conditions of being able to speak only one language, whereas bilingualism is the ability to use two languages, with the characteristics of fluency as a native speakers. A person who uses two languages, especially habitually and with control, is called a bilingual person. Multilingualism is the condition of being able to speak and understand more than two languages. And we have jargon. It is a compound language used by specialists in group expressions of a profession, sport in a certain field. This language helps experts to communicate between each other with accuracy. We have an example of internet jargon, BTW, which means by the way, BFF, which means best friend forever. Example of political jargon, right-wing jargon means a conservation viewpoint, POTUS, which means President of the United States. And we have SCUOTUS, which means Supreme Court of the United States. Example of medical jargon, BP, medical shortened of blood pressure, GT, angina. FX, medical jargon meaning bone fracture. Now we move to slang language. It's a little bit similar to jargon. It is an informal and it is as such a form of new words of observation to existing IDs in order to develop a sense of identity. This type is used more by teenagers in social groups. It is simplifying the way of communication. It is called the language of the young generation. For example, we have get it, which means to understand something. Sorry, but I just don't get it. Can you repeat it, please? The second example, we have laid back, which means relax, calm down. Example, he is so laid back, I wish I could be more like that. Now move to patois language. This type is not taken in consideration as a standard language but as a dialect, and it is not an official term in linguistics. It can refer to many other varieties of language but not to slang or jargon. For example, here we have some words in English. We try to find the meaning in patois. Indi, ina, do, dung, evening, evening, give me, gimme. We have colloquial informal language. This kind of language is effectively not formal and it is a form of everyday use of language. It is the simplest and the easiest language that everyone can use in conversational form or the speak form. We move to the last point, which is official language. Is that form of language that we may find every country. It is used by high classes such as parliament and government. It is given a special legal statute in country, and we may find more than one official language in a country. For example, Arabic is the official language of Algeria. English is the official language of America and England. Spanish is the official language of Spain.